Okay, so in this video, we're going to consider this whole topic of comparative advantage. And this is the one that you've got to use in the exam. If you are writing about countries benefiting from trade, then you've got to use comparative advantage. But I would recommend before you do this video that you also have a look at the absolute advantage video, because it sets up what we're going to do, because this is going to be just a little bit more complicated, I'm afraid. Okay, so let's get started. What we're talking about here is that one country, and the case that we're going to look at is Britain, this Britain here, they are more efficient at both of the goods. So if you remember absolute advantage, then one country was efficient at one, the other country was more efficient in the other good. But in this case here, Britain, as you'll see, is more efficient at both TVs and washing machines. Now you can see immediately, I hope, that it's sort of twice as efficient at TVs, but it's 4 times as efficient at washing machines, and that's going to be important later on. So again, we go to the idea that if they don't specialize, so this is where you build these figures here, where you're going to build up your PPF. If they don't specialize, if they go half of their factors in one industry and the other half in the other industry, then this is what you're going to find, that America will have 2 TVs and 4 washing machines. That's simply half of these numbers here. And Britain would have 4 TVs and 16 washing machines, which is half of the factors in each of those industries. So you end up with 6 TVs and 20 washing machines. Now, like we did before, you draw a PPF, and what you see is that in the case of Britain here, it could have 4 televisions, 16 washing machines, if it put half of the factors in each of the industries. Okay, if they didn't put half the factors, they would have 8 and 32. Same with America, 4 and 8. But if they split the factors half and half, then they have 2 and they have 4. And it's important that you know that for how you're going to show gains from trade later on. Okay, so what would happen then if they specialize in the good in which they have this idea of a comparative advantage? So I hope before you could work out which of the goods the comparative advantage lies in, and the comparative advantage is that good at which they are most efficient, or in the case of America, if you like, they're not so bad at doing it compared to the UK. That's a sort of a way of looking at it. But the important way, and the one that you've got to use in the exam, is you've got to work out the opportunity cost of a television and then the opportunity cost of a washing machine. So if you look at the figures here, you'll see that in terms of televisions, America could do 4 televisions, or they could do 8 washing machines. So in other words, they can't do both. So that means that 4 TVs is going to cost them 8 washing machines. So 1 TV costs them 2 washing machines. So the opportunity cost of a television is 2 washing machines. In Britain, the opportunity cost of a TV is 4 washing machines. So what you should see is that the cost of producing a television is cheaper in terms of the other good that you've got to give up. Again, that's what we use with comparative advantage. There's no numbers, there's no money, it's not pounds or dollars, it's just how many of the other goods we give up. The opportunity cost is going to be cheaper in America. So America has a comparative advantage in televisions. And when you look at the cost of a washing machine, you can see that in America, for 8 washing machines is going to cost them 4 televisions. So 1 washing machine, divide that by 8, is going to cost them half a TV, where in Britain, a 1 washing machine is only going to cost a quarter of a television. In other words, there's an opportunity cost is lower in Britain for making washing machines. And so the comparative advantage is that the UK, Britain, has a comparative advantage in washing machines. Okay, now without using that data, I think you should be able to see it from the table anyway. You can see that here Britain is twice as good as America at TVs, but it's 4 times better, and so that's the one that Britain has the comparative advantage in, and then America's going to have the other one. Look at this, and now sort of problem, compare it to what would be happening if they didn't specialize, and then what happens if they do specialize. So as I said before, if they do specialize, you pick up hopefully the idea that the TVs is going to have, we're going to have 6 televisions and we're going to have 20 washing machines if they did half of their factors in one and half of their factors in the other. If, however, they don't, they specialize in the good in which they've got their comparative advantage. America puts all of its factors into televisions, Britain puts all of its factors into making washing machines, and you end up with 4 televisions and 32 washing machines. Now, even though that might look good in the sense that washing machines, there's 12 more washing machines produced than we did before, you will always have the problem of the fact that in one of those goods, in this case TVs, there's always going to be a lower number when you specialize. So there's 4 TVs and there's 6 washing machines if we didn't specialize. And you're always going to have that, and that's a problem. And that's what you've got to be able to explain in the exam and in any analysis, and then show gains from trade. Okay, now it's not as simple as saying, well, there's 12 more of those and 2 less of those, so plus 12 and minus 2, we've still got 10 more, because you can't compare. And there's now going to be 3 ways in which you can show that there are in fact gains from trade. And in this video, we're going to go through the mathematical way, and in the next video, we're going to go through the diagrammatic way. And I would highly recommend that you use the diagrammatic approach in the exam, mainly because it's not using numbers, which you can get confused with, and I feel it's a lot quicker, and I'll show you how you draw the diagram at the end as well. Okay, so what you can see, as I said just now, is that you're 2 televisions down, but we're 12 washing machines up. And what you've got to do is you've got to look at this idea of opportunity cost in order to try and compare or equate, if you like, the 2 televisions that we're losing with the 12 washing machines that we're gaining. And this is a legitimate way of showing gains from trade. So we'll bring in here, this is the opportunity cost of televisions in America, and then in the UK, this is the opportunity cost of washing machines. Okay, so what you can see is that in America it's 1 to 2, and in Britain it's 1 to 4. So America, which is producing its televisions, is going to want to get, if it's benefiting from trade, more than 2 washing machines from Britain. So it's going to want to get 3 washing machines, or 4, or 5, or 6. But Britain can give up 4 washing machines to get a television internally by just switching the factors of production. So they are not going to trade unless the ratio was somewhere between the 2 and the 4. So, for example, a ratio at which they would trade at is 1 to 3. Okay, so in other words, you'd be saying that America would give up a television and very nicely get 3 washing machines, better than internally, but Britain, okay, would want to give up 3 washing machines in order to get that television, but they're not going to give up more than that because they can give up 4 internally to get their television. And so this is the ratio at which both countries would trade, and it's always going to be between the 2 opportunity cost ratios. Now, once you've done that, you can then say in the exam that therefore, and I'll bring it down here, that what you can argue is that the idea that if the value of one television is 3 washing machines, that's what they'll trade at, then 2 televisions is 6 washing machines. So it's the equivalent of 6 washing machines. And so the loss of 2 televisions is it's equivalent to the loss of 6 washing machines, but we gained 12, we lost 6, so therefore there's gains from trade. So that would be a mathematical way of showing gains from trade, just by working out the ratio at which they're going to trade, and then you should always find that that works. Another way, which I'll show you in the next slide, here it is to part specialize. Okay. Now the problem here, if you remember, is that, as I say, you've only got here 4 televisions, and you used to have 6. So what we do is we say, well, let's make Britain not completely specialize. So let's have, we don't have 0 televisions. We bring that to 2 televisions. So now we have 6, which is the same number as that. Okay, and therefore that gets rid of the problem of there's 2 less televisions. So if you remember, their opportunity cost was 4 televisions or 16 washing machines, 1 TV, 4 washing machines. So if they still produce 2 televisions, they're giving up 8 washing machines, 2 TV, 8 washing machines, and so therefore, instead of producing 32 washing machines, they're going to produce 32 minus 8, which is 24 washing machines. So by part specializing, they still end up with 6 televisions, 24 washing machines, and that means they're 4 washing machines up overall, and that is benefits from. So it's a way in which you can do it. You can do that in the exam if you want to. You can use the numbers. I wouldn't necessarily be doing the part specialization one, because to my mind it doesn't actually prove specialization and trade, but certainly you could do the first one. But in the next video I'm going to show you the diagrammatic approach.